Right into the stretch, looking back and throws up the middle. Throws is on his way around. Picked up by Otis.
Here comes the ready or not. Here comes the boys from the south. Here comes the ready or not. How you like me now? I say, here comes the boom, ready or not. Here comes the boys from the south. Boom, here comes the boom, ready or not. How you like me now?
You don't live in Cleveland, you live in Cincinnati.
You are watching live to the best Cincinnati sports podcast this side of Dayton Daily News, located at 1611 South Main Street. How's everybody doing today?
I'm fired up, man. I'm happy as hell for this one.
We
got a lot to talk about. We got
Lots
some
to
good
talk
stuff
about.
going on in town.
in about 40 minutes. So we had a few technical difficulties. We got it all worked out now. So real quick, we do want to go ahead and mention our sponsors. We do have Brimminghorn Meadery. Do you like honey? Do you like wine? What about alcohol? Mix them all together and you get mead. Brimminghorn has been winning awards for their mead since about 1997, most recently the Delaware Rural Small Business of the Year Award. Use our code HOODAY9 on your order of 2 bottles or more to receive 15% off of your order. Must be 21 years of age or older to order on brimminghornmeadery.com. So that is our first sponsor. Our second sponsor we've got is Three-Way City. Three-Way City, bringing the sights and culture of Cincinnati to fashion, named after the traditional Cincinnati-style chili spaghetti. Our good friend Adam Rennell founded Three-Way City with this in mind. From hats to shirts to jackets, grab a piece of Cincinnati on threewaycity.com today. And they've also got possible Cincinnati Bearcat edition coming out. They've got the FC Cincinnati edition out, so go check them out at threewaycity.com. Now, no more waiting. No more waiting. With 50 years of covering the Reds, winning 52 Ohio and National Writing Awards, including being inducted into the National Sportscasters and Sports Writing Association's Hall of Fame, please welcome Mr. Hal McCoy.
Yes, sir.
There he is.
How you doing, Mr. McCoy?
Can you hear us? Did the audio go out?
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, no, he's got no sound. Click. Is there a button to click unmute? Oh, no. Is there an unmute button on there, Hal? Try to say something there, Hal. I don't think you can hear us. Working? Oh, he clicked something. No? You want here, let me text him real quick. Red's dad, Greg, why don't you guys go ahead and talk for a second?
Absolutely. We there's a lot to talk about. The Reds have been on a tremendous roll. I know they've lost a couple games, but those were two of the more exciting games the Reds would have ever played to come up on the short end. That team they played in the Atlanta Braves is one of the best teams, if not the best team in baseball. And for us to go up against that team with the limited amount of talent we have right now at the starting pitching, very little depth, and a bullpen that is flat wore out.
Hit it
and
one
to
more
hang
time
in there as well as we did. That was just incredible that we got that close to coming back in both of those games and beating that team.
Absolutely. We're not a complete team here. We weren't even supposed to do anything this year. I mean, this Braves team is built to win the World Series. The fact that we went neck and neck, like you just said with them, those last two games, that is something to be proud of and all that. Like we are a very competing team this year and all that. Like we have nothing to lose. Bengal Day, can you agree? It kind of reminds you of this Bengals team 2 years ago when we went to the Super Bowl where we had nothing to lose.
Yeah, it's very similar to that. And I think the starting pitching is indicative or comparative to what the offensive line was of the Bengals a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Achilles heel of the team. It's the only thing that's keeping us from really, really dominating.
Right. Let's see if.
And I know there's a lot of people.
Hal, can you hear us? Can you hear us? I don't think he can hear us.
There's a lot of people that are clamoring for the Reds to get more starting pitching. I'm one of them. But they have to be really, really careful about this. I would not mortgage any level of the future to get a couple adequate starting pitchers. There's going to be pitchers out there that are on teams like the Detroit Tigers with Michael Lorenzen.
Yes.
And there's other ones to name that have already paid money for these pitchers, and they know that they're getting no return on their investment because their team is so far out of it already. They would welcome a team to at least take that contract off of their hands. The Reds need to treat this like a mid-season free agency period.
Yes.
And try to buy a couple half-year contracts to show this team that's busting its ass that they appreciate everything that they're doing. Because with a little better starting pitching, this team can definitely win the division. And then you get into short series, who knows?
All right.
Absolutely.
He is going to come back in the same way he did because it did work when we went live. So he's going to do that. He should be on here shortly. And once I kicked him to the background and then brought him back.
Yeah, something happened then.
Yeah,
Right.
I've had that happen to me before. So it's
no. Oh, it happens all the time.
Yeah, it's just a technical difficulty, and we'll get it ironed out. But I wouldn't want to trade like anything really, unless it's like Nick Senzel or Kevin Newman or somebody like that.
Yeah, right. and I value Kevin Newman much, much more than I do Nick Senzel.
Yes.
And I know he hit into the double play last night, but I'm telling you, that was a hell of an at bat.
Oh, absolutely.
Going against Iglesias and getting slider after slider after slider, fighting it off. You know, he hits that ground ball 10 feet to the left or the right, or he squares it up just a little more. That's a double down the line. We win the game, and everybody's singing the praises of Kevin Newman. He didn't just flail at the ball and strike out.
Yeah, it was like 80 pitch at bat.
Oh, yeah. My question to you both is, besides starting pitching, what is another need we have, do you think?
A left-handed reliever.
Yes.
We got to have somebody besides Young.
Aroldis Chapman?
I mean, it could be Aroldis Chapman. It could be, as long as it's somebody that can throw strikes and get people out.
Right.
What impressed me is when we swept the Royals, they looked like they had 3 or 4 really nice arms in their bullpen.
Right.
And maybe they'd be willing to part with one of their arms for not too terribly much. It seemed like they had 3 guys that were bringing the ball at 100 miles an hour. I can't recall if any of them were left-handed or not, but they seemed like they had some quality arms in their bullpen.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I mean, like I said, this team at Bengal Day, and I know your years watch. I mean, I know you saw some great teams, but could you argue for quite some time since like 2010 or 11, this is like the most complete team batting 1 through. Now I know we have the DH now, but like 1 through 9, you could say. I mean,
it's the deepest team short of the Big Red Machine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because the Big Red Machine had Concepcion and Geronimo hitting 7th and 8th.
Yeah.
And if they would have had the DH, you'd have had some pretty good players that are sitting on that bench that would have been playing.
How are we? Can you hear us, Hal? Oh, we're trying.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh,
no.
This is painful.
We're trying.
Painful.
We're trying.
How about now?
Can you?
Uh-oh.
Oh, no, guys, we're sorry.
It's all right.
Well, somebody said we'd like to. Now we do too. It works on the phone. Like I don't know if you want me to call them and just get them on the speaker.
We got. Let's try something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hal's hitting the mute, the mute and the unmute button. We see that. We're so sorry, guys.
Sorry about the delay.
Yeah, it's just technical difficulties, but let's.
I mean, I can talk for 30 more minutes about the Reds, but nobody wants to hear my opinion of them.
No,
I've been down on them for a year and a half since Castellini said his garbage. But
Yeah.
Me too. But you know what, Bengal Dad?
This team is remarkable.
But Bengal Dad, can you agree also, especially even before the Bengals come, aren't you grateful we have something that keeps us preoccupied before Bengals?
Oh, sure. I've never seen a team bring up so many young players that hit the ground running.
Yeah, me neither.
It's amazing with Steer and McLean and Dela Cruz, and even their second-year guys. I know I talked about this last week, but they're 3-year guys. When you got Indian, you got Stevenson, the second-year guys with Fraley and Friedel. I mean, these guys, they are hard, difficult outs every at bat.
Yeah.
And it wears the other team's pitchers out. Right. It's a mental stress and a physical stress on the other team.
I'm going to call Hal.
No, go for it.
We'll just try to do it over the phone.
That's cool. But like Bengal Dad, like you and I were also talking, like, do you agree with me? Home runs can be overrated because, like, if you're a pitcher, you give up a home run. Okay, say if you're up 3-0, you give up a home run, you're still okay. It's still 3-1.
It can be a rally killer. I know Chris Walsh says that all the time, but I agree. It can kill a rally.
Yes, it can. It can be a big-time rally because the pressure's off, but you keep getting double or single after double. You're looking over your shoulder. Hey, that guy's on first or second, and they keep getting base hit after base hit. That's going to make the pitcher nervous, in my opinion. You know?
Oh, yeah.
That's what I think to myself. And people call me
you got him working out of the stretch where he's used to working out of the windup, too.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a little bit of this because of our speed when we're bouncing off the bases, it distracts him a little bit. I think Fraley benefits greatly when he's hitting behind Dela Cruz and when he gets on base because the pitcher's attention is so much diverted to Dela Cruz. That guy's going to miss his spot sometimes, and that's when Fraley can take advantage of it.
Now, speaking of Dela Cruz, out of all like I said, we've seen some great prospects come up. The one I remember everybody was excited for the most is either Jay Bruce or Homer Bailey. Homer Bailey wasn't a butt. He got 2 no-hitters, but I don't know if he ever panned out. Jay Bruce was a little streaky for me, but my question to you is this the most exciting prospect you ever seen come up?
Yeah, him and Eric Davis.
Eric Davis, yeah.
When Eric came up, I mean, he was doing some pretty amazing things, but I think it was later. And I remember he had a month. I think it was September of '85. I don't quite remember the year. I mean, he had a remarkable month, and he was just hitting balls out of the park and hitting doubles and hitting triples. He was doing what Dela Cruz does. The difference is Dela Cruz does it with flair.
Yes.
Eric Davis was a little more lunch pail about it. He wasn't pumping his fist. He wasn't gyrating. He wasn't showing the emotion. He was playing the game, I'll say, in a respectful manner, the way the game used to be played. Yes. But Dela Cruz is just fun to watch, and he strikes – he is like Billy Hamilton and Deion Sanders with power.
Yes.
What he's like. Billy didn't have the flair. Right. Deion had the flair. They both had the speed, and that's what he's got with them. But Deion Sanders didn't have an arm, didn't have power. Billy didn't have power. Billy had the arm.
Right.
But Dela Cruz is every piece of it. He's just going to have to learn because they're not going to feed him fastballs. And eventually over time, he's going to learn to start going the other way with the pitch. And once he starts beating them that way, the key to Dela Cruz is just getting on base. It's not really the home runs.
No, yeah.
When he gets on base, all kinds of havoc begins. It's kind of like when Joe Morgan used to get on base way back in the 70s. The whole crowd was just buzzing as he was on the base.
All right. How
do we have him?
I can hear you.
Yeah, there we go. Yes. Thank you. Awesome.
Oh,
man, Hal, we cannot thank you enough for taking the time to come on. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. Isn't technology great when it works?
Yeah, thanks for hanging in there.
Yes. Thank you so much.
So you didn't hear my wonderful introduction for you.
No, I didn't.
So well, real quick, 50 years of covering the Reds, won 52 Ohio and National Writing Awards, including being inducted into the National Sportscasters and Sports Writers Association's Hall of Fame. Mr. Hal McCoy, I love that technology worked right now.
Fine. We finally got it to go.
Absolutely. Now, Greg has about 634 questions for you, so it won't take too long. Now, But
Yeah.
Greg, why don't you start us off? Because I know you're itching to ask a question.
How I don't even know where to start here. I mean, out of all your years covering the Reds, I know this is probably a big question. What is the most memorable player you ever covered? I know that's a long list, but do you have the one that what's the first player that comes to your mind that you just said, wow, I just love covering this certain player? I know this is a hard one to answer.
I know everybody expect me to say somebody from the Big Red Machine, but I'm not going to. It would be Eric Davis, who is my all-time favorite player. The guy was a 5-tool player, would be in the Hall of Fame right now if he didn't have a penchant for running into walls. But I remain friends with him to this day. And not only was he a tremendously great ball player, he is a great, great person and a great friend.
Awesome.
Reds dad, why don't you go ahead?
Well, I can't say that I've been associated with the Reds for 50 years in your capacity. I've been a 51-year Reds fan, but it's really 50 because I gave up on him last year when Castellini went public with his comments. I couldn't take that. Did we lose him? Oh, he's back. Okay.
I'm still here.
Okay.
All right. Well, but the last few weeks has certainly brought me back. But my question doesn't even involve this year's team. Who was your let me look at my question again. Now I drew a blank. See, I'm in front of a star here, and I've drawn a blank. This is crazy. As far as the Big Red Machine is concerned, I'd like to have a story. What's your favorite story of either Pete Rose or the Big Red Machine?
I'm sorry, I didn't get the end of that.
What's your favorite story of either Pete Rose or the Big Red Machine?
Well, of course, Pete Rose, you could talk forever, and was the greatest hitter of all time, who made the most out of the least, and great interview. I mean, the guy is so street smart, so baseball smart. I would walk up to him in the clubhouse and ask him a question and open my notebook, and he would fill it up. I wouldn't have to ask another question. And his total recall of everything that he ever did. I wrote a coffee table book with him back in the 70s, and I had about 300 pictures. It was a picture book. And we had breakfast in Philadelphia at a hotel. I put the pictures in front of him and had him make a comment. Pictures, what happened. I went 3 for 4 that day against Carlton, he would say, and this is me sliding into second base in the 3rd inning. That's the kind of memory he had concerning baseball. And, it is just too bad what has happened to him, because he thought he was a Teflon man and everything would slide off of him. But he still remains a friend of these days. And I just was very honored to be able to.
I've got a question for you too. So, I mean, you've been covering the Reds for 50 years, but just is there a moment that sticks out to you, not necessarily Reds related, or it could be, but the moment that you think of, and when you think of your career, this is the moment I think of?
Oh man, I've covered 7,000 games and written 25,000 baseball stories.
This should be easy.
Yeah, right. The first one will be Game 6 of the 1975 World Series, where Carlton Fisk hit the home run, and I was there and had to totally rewrite my story, but that's another story. And then there's Pete's 4,196 hit. That was, there's no cheering in the press box, but when he landed that hit, everybody in a press box stood and applauded, and I've never seen that before or since. And then there's Tom Browning's perfect game. That was a very memorable game, and those are probably the 3 highlights. In the 1990 Lou Piniella led wire-to-wire team, those would be the highlights of 50 years.
Well, speaking of Lou Piniella, Greg's got a question concerning managers.
Yeah. What is your favorite man? Do you have a favorite manager of all time that you liked covering?
Well, Lou Piniella was right at the top of my list, and Jack McKeon, Trader Jack McKeon. But Lou Lou was my favorite. We got along very well. And he's the only manager who ever asked me a question concerning what they should do for the team. When he took over the team, spring training, I was in his office. He said, Hal, you've seen this team. What does this team need? And I said, it needs a leadoff hitter. Well, he put Barry Larkin as a leadoff hitter, and about halfway through the season, he said, Hal, you were right. So the only manager in all my time that ever asked me a question. Of course, one of the funnier things that ever happened was when Lou threw first base when he disagreed with, unhappy with his distance, he went out and picked it up and threw it again. Well, I brought it up about a month later, and he said, you know what? I probably should not have done that. And I said, why? He said, well, my wife probably should have done it sooner.
Oh, he should have done it sooner, his wife
Right.
said.
Yes.
It's,
If I'd have known that, if I'd have known she wasn't going to speak to me for 2 weeks, I would have done it sooner. And then you remember the fight between Dibble and Piniella?
Oh yeah, in the locker room. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I started that.
Yeah.
After the game, when Dibble didn't pitch, when we thought he was his spot, I asked Lou why Dibble didn't pitch, and he said, "Well, he told me before the game he had a little something in his elbow." So I went out to Dibble and I said, "What's wrong with your elbow?" And he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, your manager said you didn't pitch because you had a little something in your elbow." And he said, "Well, the manager's a liar." Well, I went back into Lou and I said, "Your closer just called you a liar." And Lou sprinted out of the office and the fight was on and I had a great story.
oh my gosh! So what you're saying is that not only did you miss your calling as a manager, but you also were an instigator.
Yes, you might say that. Anything for a story.
Absolutely.
Oh gosh, Reds Dad, I know you got a few more.
Well, De La Cruz. Obviously, you're watching the Reds currently, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And I guess the only comp that the Reds would have to him is Eric Davis.
Yes.
I remember Eric Davis coming up early. I remember a lot of his feats that he did, I believe, in September of his first year. I clearly remember him just killing Philadelphia in Philadelphia. But how do you feel like De La Cruz is going to kind of stack up with Eric Davis? Because the talents are similar.
Yeah, very much so. When Eric Davis started out in his first year and was tearing Willie Mays, and what a comparison that is. And Eric resented it. He didn't want to be compared with anybody. And Ellie De La Cruz, I think, is the same way. He's Ellie. I'm one of a kind. But he has all the tools that Eric had. They had the speed, he has the arm, the power. They both wear number 44, and that's no accident. Ellie loves Eric Davis, and so the comparison I think is legit. Although if he doesn't get hurt, he'll eclipse everything Eric Davis ever did.
Oh yeah. Well, piggybacking off of that, this Reds team has infused the city with so much excitement. What is your take just overall on the Reds team, the way they've been able to put together that win streak, battle back to get into first place? Like, what's your take on just the Reds team in general this year?
I was like everybody else at the start of the season. I thought they were going to lose 100 games again, but I didn't figure on them bringing up McLean and De La Cruz and Abbott, and that's just changed everything. Changed the culture. They are hustling, taking the extra base. They're playing little ball. Rob Manfred did them a huge favor by making the bases bigger, eliminating the shift, having the pitcher only be able to throw over to first base twice. It all played into the small ball that the Reds are playing. And I just, I'm like everybody else. I am enthralled with what I'm seeing. I never thought I'd see anything like this again in my career. I thought, that they were going to be rebuilding for another 3 or 4 years, but the here is now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let me ask you something. So we have this other team, the Bengals. You have the Bengals and the Reds doing good at the same time. How remarkable is it you see both franchises, the city of Cincinnati in general, even like with the soccer team, FC Cincinnati, with all these sports franchises doing awesome at the same time.
Yeah, it's absolutely awesome. I mean, before the Bengals were the laughing stock, and then they started playing better when they got Joe Burrow and made the Super Bowl and all that. Then the Reds were the laughing stock. So, they were just kind of direct opposites. But now with this year and what's going on, it's just grabbed the city by the throat. I mean, Phil Castellini last opening day did everything he could to keep the fans away and did a pretty good job of it. But this team is bringing them back. It was just so awesome over the weekend to see 43,000 fans in the stands going crazy. That's just what we've been looking for.
That's the largest crowd, weekend crowd, or largest series
Great
Great American Ballpark ever.
Yeah,
I was there.
Yeah, I was there Friday. The crowd was electrifying. I was just so happy seeing the whole crowd just going off. It was just unbelievable. Friday it was.
And the team feeds off things like that, and you could tell. I mean, they were playing the Atlanta Braves, and they were very easily could have won all 3 games. Lost 2 games by 1 run in the 9th inning. They put a scare in them both times. So, they're showing that they can play with the big boys.
Absolutely.
Something silly that started at the very beginning of the season was the Viking helmet and the cape, and I was like, I kind of dig it. It's fun, maybe it's what they need to not necessarily make them play better, but make them play more fun, and because it is a game. All of a sudden, now the crowd is feeding off of this. They're wearing Viking helmets to the games.
Right.
What's your take on just how that came about and what it can do for a ball club to have something like that to hang on to and feed off of?
Well, I think the Toronto Blue Jays started that with some kind of jacket they used to put on, and a whole lot of teams have picked up on that. And it is entertainment, and the fans love it. Sometimes it seems kind of childish, but it is a child's game. So. The Viking helmet came from Fraley, who's got Viking, and the team really feeds on that. I loved it when Joey Votto hit a home run, and he said, "I saw that, and I wanted to be part of that, and I wanted to wear that jacket and that hat."
That's so awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Red's dad.
Do you think that the ability will be there for the Reds to get a couple average to slightly above average starting pitching in the last 2 to 3 months of this season and not mortgage the future?
That's a great question. And if they're going to contend, they obviously have to fix the pitching. The injuries have decimated the starting staff, and the starting pitchers now are not going more than 3 or 4 innings. David Bell's going to wear out that bullpen. By August, they're not going to be able to lift their arms. So if they stay in contention, stay close to the top or leading, I think that Nick Kroll will do everything he can to go out and find a healthy couple of arms to put into that rotation. It's the only way they're going to contend because they've got everything else. The starting pitching is what they need.
Yep. Not only do we have the great Hal McCoy on here as a momentous occasion, having a Hall of Fame rider, but my wife maybe has asked the very first question she's ever asked on the show in the chats. Do you think that Votto would have come back when he did if the Reds didn't have all this momentum?
Yeah, I think he would have come back. It's probably going to be his last year, and he wants to be a part of it, and he wants to play. And I know there were a lot of people thought, don't come back. You're going to upset the chemistry of this team. But just the opposite. I think he's infused even more. I like the way he acted. I mean, I was eye-popping when David Bell pinch hit for him Sunday. I could not believe it. And Joey took it very well. He stood on the top of the dugout and encouraged India, even though India struck out. But Joey wants to be part of this, and I think he would have been back. No doubt about it in my mind. He's a competitor, and I think he wants to go out on top He's had a tough couple of years, and he's 39 years old, and he wants to play.
So, Mr. McCoy, you were part of that awesome documentary MLB Network did about the Nasty Boys and all that whole 1990 team. And one of my memorable scenes is when you said people ask you all the time who your favorite team was, and you said they'd all expect you to say the 75-76 team, but you always say 1990. What was it about that team that made them your favorite team?
Well, number one, they weren't expected to do what they did. I mean, they had finished second about 3 or 4 years in a row, but they were not predicted to do what they did. They went wire to wire, and then they were huge underdogs against the Oakland A's, and they went out there and won 4 straight against the A's and were totally dominating. And the fact that I love Lou Piniella and I love Eric Davis, so that's my favorite team. And the strange thing about it is Marty Brennaman says the same thing. The 1990 team was his favorite team.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Marty, that piggybacks into a question that I've got. So right here, my grandma got this for me because this is a Joe Nuxall scarf. And so they built their house the same time as my grandparents on the exact same street, 3 houses down. So they basically grew up together. Their kids grew up together. I got to go over to his house and see his basement, the shrine that he had, swim in his pool, all this stuff. What is a Joe Nuxall? What is a Joe Nuxall story that you've got that maybe isn't as well known but is super entertaining?
Well, there's so many, but the one that involves me, it's not famous or anything, but when Joe first met me, my real name is Harold. And I hated it. I wouldn't let anybody call me that. But for some reason, Nuxie started calling me Harold, and I never said anything about it. I let it go because I respected the guy so much.
Right.
Every time he saw me, he would say, "Hello, Harold," and I would cringe, but I would not say anything. And I used to do the second inning with Marty Brennaman, and when I went in to the booth, Nuxie always got up and I sat in his seat, and after he passed away, I thought they should have just left that seat empty in that press box. And I felt kind of queasy about sitting in it, the great Joe Nuxall. But just a great, great guy.
Yep. I agree 100%. He was a close family friend. It was sad when Don Zeta passed away, and
yes,
they had the Miracle League field stuff going on, and Sean Casey crying, Kim and Phil there crying. It gives me chills right now just thinking about it. But Red's dad, I know you've got another question for.
I've got one more. This current team that you're watching, do they remind you of any Reds team in the past?
No, they really don't. I've never seen a team like this that has. When Bob Howsam took over the Reds and built a big red machine, they had the AstroTurf in Riverfront Stadium, so he knew that this team would have to have some speed, which is why he went out and got Joe Morgan and Cesar Geronimo to play defense on that AstroTurf and to have some speed on the base paths. Well, this team is not playing on AstroTurf, but they're sure built for speed. All these guys can run. I read somewhere where 5 of the Reds players are in the top 90 percentile of speed in the majors. Yeah. And they're certainly showing it by the way they play, going from first to third and second to home, and really putting pressure on the other team's defense with their speed, plus stealing more bases. I mean, they almost have twice as many bases stolen this year than they stole all of last year. But this team, if anything, it might remind me a little bit of the Big Red Machine, except it doesn't have the power, but it doesn't need it.
Right. Yeah, they even leg out these doubles that should have been singles.
Yeah, they don't stop. They do not stop. They bust out of the batter's box and round first base, and if there's a slight hesitation by the center fielder or the right fielder, they're sliding to second base. And probably one of the more amazing things I've ever seen in my 50-year career was Ellie De La Cruz beating out a ground ball 20 feet from first base to the first baseman. That just shows how fast he is. That was incredible.
Yeah,
Mr. McCoy, Oh, go ahead.
That was a bullet that he hit to first.
Yeah.
Too. It wasn't like the guy was lollygagging back there.
No. He about knocked him over with it. I think
Yeah.
it was about 115 miles an hour off the bat. So
I do have one strategy question that Greg posed to me before we started this. In the ninth inning yesterday, 1st and 3rd, 1 out, 2-2 count on.
why didn't they steal second base?
Yeah, we both have our own different opinion on that. Do you think they should have stole at that point or not?
I don't think they should have taken the gamble. He could have been thrown out. But on the other hand, if he makes it into second base, that eliminates the double play. But
Correct.
So you can look at it both ways. I have to kind of lollygag on that one, but I thought about it too. India should probably steal second base and eliminate that double play.
Well, you're the only one here that's got the managerial experience.
Yeah, that's why I'm
I
asking
don't
you.
know what to do. So
Yeah, my point of view on that was I wouldn't have went until it was 3-2 because typically the first baseman will drop back
Right.
a little bit. You get a bigger lead. The chance of a strikeout, throwout, end of game is pretty much eliminated.
Yeah.
And that's why I would have waited for 3-2, but it didn't work out. But that was a heck of an at bat by Newman.
Yeah,
It really was hanging in there.
Yeah, he did it. He always puts up good at bats. He's a
professional hitter.
He is a professional player. Yes, he is.
I mean, you know what? We were bringing up the Elliott Cruz. The only time how I remember seeing anything like that, beating a first base on the ground out was Bo Jackson. Now, I know Bo was an athletic freak, but Bo Jackson, he does stuff that Bo Jackson does that we thought we'd never see again. Is that kind of a fair comparison, Bo Jackson, or is that a little too,
I would compare him more to Deion Sanders.
All right.
Yeah. One of the thrilling things that I got to see was Deion Sanders running out a triple. And when Dela Cruz ran out that triple to right center, the first thing I thought about, that's Deion Sanders running.
right.
That's awesome. Hey, that's awesome too. Absolutely, absolutely.
We don't have a whole lot of time because we know that you got to watch the game tonight, and you've got stuff that you got to write and get out there. So, real quick, do you have any thoughts about this series coming up with the Baltimore Orioles? Because they're a hot team, just like the Braves are. So
yes.
Another big series, absolutely. And when they go home, they play San Diego. So the next 6 games will be very telling. I know the Padres have struggled, but they got a lot of talent and they've got good pitching. So, but this Baltimore series in Baltimore, yeah, it's real big. It would be great to see them take 2 out of 3. So we shall see what happens.
I'm looking for Ellie to hit one off the bricks.
Yeah, that would be nice. I'm waiting for him to hit one over the right field moon deck. He almost did it with his first.
Almost.
Yes, he did.
Top row. I mean, he has got all awesome power. I mean, as we talked about, even his ground balls are 115 miles an hour.
Right.
Yeah, he instantly came into the game, the first game, and hit the hardest hit ball by a Red all year. Like,
yeah.
It's like just unreal.
And how to add on to that, this team, you look at all the players, even when Ellie comes to bat, all the players at the edge of the dugout wanting to see what he's going to do. Like, even like when that one pitcher made that interesting comment and all that and stuff when he won the game against Kansas City. After the game, all of his teammates were just surrounding there watching him. I mean, this whole team, like we were all just talking about, it's just having fun playing baseball.
I'll tell you how dynamic he is. Even though I've covered baseball for Dean is not a baseball fan, but when Ellie Dela Cruz comes to bat, she plops down in front of the TV and watches.
That's awesome.
Oh my goodness. Well, Hal, I can't thank you enough. I know Red's dad and Greg, they feel the exact same. Like, just thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. I appreciate you having me on, and I'm sorry about the technical difficulties that cut us short. So maybe
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We definitely got to have you on again.
We definitely, if we could have you on again, yes.
We'll do it on a non-game day.
Yes,
that would be good. And then I'll spend the full time with you.
Yeah, and spend some time, because I know there's 1,000 questions we could ask, and we don't have a co-host here with us, so I know he's got a ton of questions that he's going to have too.
I'll be glad to do it. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Hal. We appreciate you, sir.
Take care.
We'll see you, Hal.
Bye.
See you, Hal.
Bye, guys.
Take care.
Unreal.
That was great.
Red's dad, let me ask you something. How long have you been reading about Hal McCoy? I mean, you've probably known him since you were a kid, right?
I've known about him for a long time. For a very, you guys don't know this, but for a very short period of time in 1985, I interned as a reporter for the Reds.
Really?
And I was in the locker room for the first half of the 85 season, and then my internship ended, and that was the same year Rose hit 41.92.
You've talked about this before. Yeah, I remember this. Yeah.
Did I? Okay. Yeah. I mean, I remember, I don't know if I remember Hal McCoy being down there. I certainly remember Dan Hoard's brother, Greg. He would always be comfortably sitting in the back of the room with his legs crossed because he was the sage veteran and nothing rattled him. And all of us just in Pete Rose's office listening to Rose chirp about the game. But no, having Hal McCoy on here, that's a big one. We did really, really well. Good job, Cincy James, getting him.
Well, it's a team effort. I think next time, hopefully the technical difficulties won't be there. Hopefully we'll be able to have an hour or so with him.
Sure.
It seemed like he enjoyed himself. So
I think so.
Yeah, I think so too. And I had to get that Joe Nuxall question in there. My mom didn't.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, Hal McCoy, I've known about him since I was like in high school, like in 2002 or 3 and all that, when I really started paying attention to the Reds. Just unbelievable. Just off his Red insight. The stories. I was joking around with James Bengal Dad. If we had him for 3 hours, I think we could have easily had 3 hours worth of questions, right?
Oh yeah, questions just would have kept popping in your head.
Yes.
If he was talking, it would have just layered another one on top of it.
Absolutely. And we were just so thankful he took the time to come on. This is just so unreal. So, I think you guys can reach just times like this. Would you ever thought to yourselves we would be doing something like this, interviewing someone like Hal McCoy? Because I sure as heck would.
No, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we got somebody on tomorrow night, too.
That's right. Yeah. So, tomorrow night, hopefully he'll be on for a little longer than 10 minutes, but he did say that he could give us about 10 minutes or so. Drew Crispin, punter for the Bengals. So, he's got a really cool endeavor that he's doing right now. We won't spoil all of it, but I'm sure you've seen the story about him door dashing.
Yep.
So
I'll try not to be a kicker bully. I'm sure I'm going to see that right away when it starts.
Crip to bring it up. Don't worry.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but that's exciting because that'll be our first current player, right?
Yes,
I think so.
Be our first active player.
Yeah, that is pretty awesome as well. So we will be live tomorrow. Is 7:00. It's not a different time. We wanted to bring it back for Hal, kind of selfishly for ourselves too, because we all want to watch the Reds game. We're Reds guys. What can we say?
Yeah, we're Reds guys now.
I might be selfish again tomorrow in the middle of the afternoon going, you sure we can't do 6?
Yeah, I know, right? But no, yeah. You're going to have the Reds game. You're like, oh, come on. We're like,
hey,
my wife is standing at the door right now showing me her phone. 6:58, she says.
Stranger said he'll cover for Crip if he's not here. So that's good.
I'm sure he will.
Stranger. And Darth said the ball bomber. Yeah, there is somebody looming. We won't talk about that tomorrow. But for Greg Luther, for Red's dad, I'm Cincy James. Just want to say thanks for everybody for tuning in and have a great evening and go Red Legs.
Root on America's team.
Let's do this.
And right into the stretch. Looking back and throws up the middle. Rose is on his way around. Picked up by Otis.
Here comes the ready and now.